Hello again, my dear friends. Thank you so much for clicking that thumbnail. You are appreciated. It's been a minute since we've watched some Y files together, and when this one came across my feed, I knew we had to watch it together. Let's go.
The Santa Lucia mountain range runs from Monterey and down the coast of California. For hundreds of years, stories have been told about entities that keep watch over the mountains, sometimes seen out of the corner of the eye and always from a distance.
Okay, hold on. So, Who Are the Dark Watchers? Don't Stare Too Long is the name of the title. I should have mentioned that. But these look more like shadow people, so I don't know, maybe these are the same thing. Maybe they overlap. Let's find out.
Too long and they vanish. If you're ever hiking in the wilderness of Big Sur and feel like you're being watched, it's because you are. Nobody knows how long the Dark Watchers have been guarding the Santa Lucias, but stories go back to the Spanish settlers in the early 18th century. The Santa Lucia Mountains were the final obstacle before reaching the Pacific Ocean. And this was a dangerous climb and had to be done carefully. And as they slowly made their way through the mountains, the settlers reported seeing dark figures watching them, and they called them Los Vigilantes Oscuros. Oh, you're not going to jump in with a translation?
It's literally the title of the episode.
I know, but usually...
It's time to take off the training wheels, sport. My back hurts from carrying you.
Years later, American settlers reported seeing the same thing. So whether Native American tribe, Spanish settler, or casual hiker, everyone who travels the area gets an anxious feeling that they're being silently observed. It happens in the late afternoon, right before dusk. In the hills, usually when it's hazy, and you feel eyes on you from somewhere. You turn around and see a dark figure about 10 feet tall. It has long, thin legs and arms. You can't see its face, except for maybe dimly glowing eyes. Some have described them as wearing wide-brimmed hats and cloaks. And just as your eyes adjust and your brains...
Okay, so they have hats too, and that's another thing that is overlapping, apparently, the Hatman thing, which has also been correlated with shadow people as well. So I'm kind of wondering if this is all just one larger scheme of entities that we don't really fully understand yet.
Starts to make sense of what you're seeing, the figure vanishes. According to people who have seen the Dark Watchers, they are unsettling, but don't seem to be dangerous. They spend most of their time in the shadows of the forest, but they will come out if people are close. Legend says they're entities that follow travelers through the mountains. They have excellent hearing and eyesight. And if they detect any type of technology like a phone or GPS, they won't appear. One famous person who saw the Dark Watchers was the author John Steinbeck. In his story Flight, a character sees a dark figure staring at him from on top of a hill.
Abbé looked suspiciously back every minute or so, and his eyes sought the tops of the ridges ahead. Once, on a white barren spur, he saw a black figure for a moment, but he looked quickly away, for it was one of the Dark Watchers. No one knew who the Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never to show interest in them. They did not bother one who stayed on the trail and minded his own business.
The Dark Watchers were a bit of a family obsession for the Steinbecks. John Steinbeck's son Thomas wrote a book about them. His mother Olive actually interacted with them. She often told stories about her time as a young teacher. And to get to work, she would have to travel the dark woods of the mountains. She said she saw Dark Watchers several times, and she would leave gifts of flowers and food, and would receive gifts from the Watchers on her way home.
What?
So that's always impressive to me, the ability to stay within, I guess, to stay out of the frame of fear. When you are dealing with entities like this, some people, I would guess that most people would be unable to stay within their wits, to not just completely lose their shit if they were to come across an entity like this. I think if I were to ever come across an entity, which I've never, at least not that I've known, which, by the way, I just noticed the picture of Art Bell on the background. Cheers, man. That's awesome. Anyway, if I were to ever come across one of these entities, I feel like I would be able to stay within my frame, assuming that they're not something crazy, like some Cthulian crazy nightmare creature. Like, that might startle me, but I feel like if it was just a shadow that looked strange in the, in the side of the, like, I guess it depends on how it all approached. Because if it is just a shadow that seems cognizant of me or maybe kind of interacts, the thing is, like the author, the reading was saying, though, I don't think I would want to interact with it. I don't think I would fear it, but I also don't think I would want to. What are your thoughts on this?
What gift would she get? They wouldn't kill her in her sleep.
No, the Dark Watchers would bring her flowers too.
Creepiest romance ever.
Yeah.
There have been sightings of Dark Watchers recently, and what's spooky is the descriptions are all very similar. I'll link you to a page where you can read a bunch of them, but here are a few of my favorites.
One day, I was hiking the mountains where I lived near Blythe, California. As I went further on the trail, I felt like I was being watched. The hair on my arms stood up. I turned around, worried it was a mountain lion. At the top of the mountain, I saw a hooded human figure. I couldn't see its face. The hood and cloak looked tattered and ripped. It made no sound. I turned around and went back the way I came. I never went back to that area of the mountain range again. Dan, Phoenix, Arizona.
One day, a friend and I were coming back from Los Angeles. We passed the San Luis Obispo Reservoir and saw something at the end of the mountain. It was a really big human figure, but it wasn't. It had a black cape like the Grim Reaper and holding a staff. It was in the daytime, so I knew it wasn't a person. These Dark Watchers are real. Elizabeth, San Mateo, California.
So,
I don't know why, but I just feel like these are real witches and wizards from Harry Potter. We're just the muggles that don't understand their world and, aren't privy to it all. Because these don't really seem to be necessarily supernatural or shadow creatures. They just seem like hooded figures, which very well could be physical from the way they're describing it.
So what are the Dark Watchers? Well, nobody knows for sure, but there are a couple of theories. The first one is that it's a simple case of pareidolia. Pareidolia is the human tendency to perceive a specific image in a random visual pattern. Some cases of pareidolia can be pretty compelling. I mean, look at this.
Well, now that will haunt me in my dreams.
Or the bacon murder clown.
Yeah, you got any funny ones? These are awful.
A pigeon poops a self-portrait.
That's more like it.
The woman who looks like a Muppet. Or these peppers, which are apparently dying to get out. Once your brain makes the connection between that random image and a real-life object, you can't not see it. The Dark Watchers could be long shadows caused by trees that, because of pareidolia, people perceive as tall figures. Maybe
True.
This is the reason they're only seen at dawn or dusk. This is when shadows are the longest. What people perceive as a Grim Reaper's staff is just a branch, and the hats are just the tops of trees. But that doesn't explain the pictures of the Dark Watchers.
Well, we got pictures.
Oh, Hecklefish.
There's a phenomenon called the Brocken Spectre. It's named after the Brocken Peak in the Harz Mountains of Germany. And for hundreds of years, locals have reported seeing shadowy figures on the Brocken Peak. But what this actually is the shadow of a hiker or a mountain climber. What happens is, when the sun is directly behind the subject, a shadow is cast on the mountain mist below. The specters are often surrounded by a rainbow halo. This rainbow effect is called a glory, and is caused by sunlight refracting off water droplets in the mist. And you can sometimes see this effect when you fly. If the conditions are right, you'll see the shadow of the plane surrounded by a glory. On the mountain, when the sun is low in the sky like dawn or dusk, the shadow can look huge. So could this be the Dark Watchers that people are seeing in the mountains, their own shadows?
Nope.
I don't know. The glories are pretty spectacular. You'd think that would have worked its way into the story. And a Brocken Spectre will stay there until the conditions change. But everyone who's claimed to see a Dark Watcher says they disappear very quickly. And skeptics have added other theories like hypoxia. Hiking's at elevation where there's less oxygen could be causing hallucinations. They also try to explain that feeling of being watched is the result of being exposed to infrasound. When wind rushes down the side of a mountain,
That makes perfect sense, actually. I was even debating whether or not I was going to share this anecdote, but since he brings this up, I used to, when I would be in the shower a couple of years ago, I would just being in a shower, and I would get close to either the side of the unit or the curtain, and as you get close to either, the sound reverberation starts getting different, and it almost sounds and feels like someone's behind you. It's kind of, you don't really notice it until you start thinking about it. In fact, I told my girlfriend at the time, and she tried it. She said, "I'm not going to try that again. That freaked me out." So let's see what they say about it.
Mountain, it can sometimes create sound under 19 hertz, just below human hearing. When exposed to infrasound, especially at high amplitudes, many report feeling anxious, even fearful. Others have reported chills running down their spine. But these theories don't explain how people see dark watchers from a moving car. Well, I'm not saying they're real, but I will admit the scientific explanations are a little thin. I don't think we can put this one in the debunked column.
Well, be still my heart.
And look, people who are new to the channel sometimes think that I'm a skeptic, set out to debunk their favorite urban legend, but that's absolutely not what I'm here to do. I love the legends as much as anyone. But most of all, I want to know the truth. Because if we can debunk 99% of these stories, doesn't that make the other 1% so much more fun?
Ooh, way to lay it down there, AJ. That was a great episode as per usual. Nice, short and sweet. I don't think that there has been a single episode of Y-Files, short or long, that I've really been disappointed. They always have super high quality content. Hecklefish had some great lines there today. Despite it was just yeah. It was just short and sweet. Great episode. As for this, I'm not too sure how I feel about it. I think it's fairly obvious that there almost has to be entities, beings of some kind around us, with how limited our spectrum of understanding, our with how limited we are in general. It really wouldn't surprise me if there were, shadow creatures of sorts, dark watchers, whatever you want to call them. I think that's perhaps just one of the many. Unfortunately, it has that all too common trope of when technology or technologies that are capable of capturing evidence, they all conveniently fail during their, when they appear. So it really is just, it becomes an argument of faith, as a lot of these things do, and that's the beauty of them, really. You almost have to go on faith. Perhaps you guys have your own stories. Maybe you guys have your own experiences with these dark watchers, with entities outside of our base realm of understanding and perceivability. If you have experience with these things, share them down in the comments. I'm very curious to hear. In any case, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. You are appreciated. Do the algorithm things, As always, be sure to question everything. Links down below. I'll see you guys all next time. Cheers.